Tonight, I learned my son's imaginary friend has a real voice. He wasn't talking to my son, he was talking to me. I used to think imaginary friend meant crayons on the wall and extra chairs at tea parties. Cute, temporary, something you joke about to other parents over coffee. Oh, he's got an invisible friend now. Must mean he's creative. That sort of thing. I don't think that anymore. Now, when I hear that phrase, I think about the way my son's eyes follow something that isn't there. I think about the baby monitor crackling to life by itself. I think about a voice that knows my name but doesn't quite understand how to use it. And I think about the moment it stopped pretending I couldn't hear it. My son is 6. His name is Noah. He's small for his age, with dark hair that always falls into his eyes and a quiet seriousness that makes him look older when he's concentrating. He doesn't have many friends at school. He says the playground is too loud and the other kids run too fast. But at home, he talks a lot. Only, not always to me. When we moved into this flat 3 months ago, Noah was clingy. New walls, new sounds, new shadows. He wouldn't go anywhere alone for the first few days, not even down the short hallway to the bathroom. Then he stopped clinging, almost overnight. He still slipped his hand into mine when we crossed roads, but in the flat, he began wandering off on his own. I would find him sitting in corners or under the dining table, murmuring under his breath. The first time I heard the name, I was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes. Noah padded in, still in his socks, clutching his cup. "Mum," he said, "can Oliver have some too?" I glanced around automatically, just the two of us. "Who's Oliver?" I asked. He blinked at me, surprised I didn't know. "My friend," he said, "the one in my room." "Oh," I smiled, "because that's what you're supposed to do. What does Oliver like to drink?" Noah stared past my shoulder into the empty doorway. "He doesn't like cold things," he said finally. He says the cold reminds him of before. Before what? Noah shrugged. Before. He didn't seem bothered, so I decided I wouldn't be either. I poured another half cup of orange squash and set it down at the table. "For Oliver," I said. Noah smiled then, a small, secret smile. He didn't touch the second cup, but he kept glancing at the chair opposite him, like someone else was. It escalated from there. "Don't sit on the end of the sofa," he'd say suddenly when I came into the living room with my tea. "That's where Oliver sits." "Don't close my wardrobe all the way," he'd insist at bedtime. He doesn't like when things are shut. He needs to see out. "Don't turn off the hallway light," he'd whisper as I reached for the switch. He says it's rude. It was always said with that same calm seriousness, like he was repeating rules someone older and stricter had given him. Not playful, not giggly, just matter of fact. One evening, as I tucked him in, I tried to keep my tone light. "How long has Oliver been your friend?" Noah stared up at the ceiling for a moment, as if counting. "Since we moved in," he said. "He was here already." "Oh." I tucked the duvet tighter around him. "Did you meet him in your room?" "No." "Where then?" His eyes slid to the corner of the room, the one by the wardrobe, the one the nightlight never quite reached. "He was sitting on your bed," he said quietly, waiting. A chill crawled up my spine. "On my bed?" I forced a laugh. "Why?" "He said he wanted to make sure you came back this time," Noah murmured. "He said sometimes people don't." I almost asked what he meant. I didn't. Some part of me already knew I didn't want the answer. I keep the baby monitor out of habit. When Noah was younger, it was a lifeline. Every little cough or whimper crackling through at 2 a.m. Now it's mostly just a comfort. The flat isn't large. I'd hear him if he cried, but the small white unit on my bedside table makes the nights feel less empty. The night I heard Oliver, I hadn't been able to sleep. The flat was too quiet. New places always have that wrong kind of quiet, the kind that makes every creak sound intentional. I lay in bed scrolling aimlessly through my phone, the blue light hurting my eyes. The baby monitor sat beside the lamp, its small green light steady, its soft background hiss blending into the darkness. Somewhere down the hallway, the boiler clicked off. The fridge whirred. A car passed outside, tires whispering on wet tarmac. Then, sheets rustling over the monitor, a small throat clearing. "Mom?" Noah's voice, thin through plastic. I thumbed the button. "I'm here," I whispered. "You okay, love?" Silence, then the slight creak of his bed. "I had a bad dream," he said. "He says I shouldn't wake you, but I did." "Who says?" There was a pause. My fingers stayed pressed on the talk button. I heard only my own breathing. When I let it go, the monitor hissed softly for a moment. Then, through the static, "You should be sleeping." The voice that came through wasn't my son's. It wasn't loud or deep or obviously wrong. It was almost flat, like someone had learned the shape of the words but not their weight. I froze. "What did you dream about?" I asked, forcing my thumb down again. My voice came out too bright. Noah didn't answer. Instead, the other voice did. "She's scared," it said. The words crackled faintly. "She shouldn't come in here yet." The monitor clicked softly as my hand shook. I set it down on the table and sat there listening, not breathing, not moving. "I told you," the voice continued, distant but clear. "She always hears you. She always listens when she's afraid." Noah's voice came back, a small whisper somewhere behind it. "Will she be mad?" "No," the other voice said after a moment. "She's too tired to be mad. She's been tired for a long time." Something in the way it said that made my teeth ache. I got up. The hallway felt longer than it was. I could see the thin strip of light under Noah's door. He always insisted on the bedside lamp being left on. "Just a little," he'd say, holding his fingers almost together, "so Oliver can see." The air outside his room felt cooler, like there was a draft that didn't exist anywhere else. I pushed the door open. Noah was sitting up in bed, clutching his duvet. The lamp on his bedside table cast everything in a soft, dull yellow, just enough to make the shadows on the walls look thicker. He jumped when he saw me, then relaxed. "Mom," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I tried to be quiet. He said not to wake you, but I did." "It's okay." My voice didn't sound like mine. "I heard you." I glanced around the room as casually as I could. Toy box in the corner, open wardrobe door, a small pile of clothes on the chair by the window. Nothing unusual, except the feeling that there was one more thing in the room than there should have been. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, though I already knew what he'd say. "Oliver," he replied. "He said you were listening." I swallowed. "What does Oliver say about me?" I tried to smile, keep it light. Noah considered this. "He says you used to talk more," he murmured. "He says you used to talk when no one else would. Before I was here." The breath caught in my throat. "Before you were here," I repeated. Noah nodded. "When I asked how he knew you, he said, she talked to me when she thought no one was listening." I stared at him. Noah looked confused now too, like he was worried he'd said the wrong thing. Did you have an imaginary friend before?" he asked. A memory surfaced uninvited. Me, much younger, in some other dim bedroom, whispering into the dark about how I couldn't do this anymore, how I was so tired, how I wished someone, anyone, would just stay, just listen, just be there, talking to the ceiling, to the dark, to nothing, or so I'd thought. "No," I lied automatically. "No, I didn't." Noah stared down at his hands. "He says you forgot," he said softly. "He says grown-ups always forget." Back in my room, I turned the baby monitor off. Then, on second thought, I unplugged it entirely and shoved it into the drawer of my bedside table. It felt like a small act of control. For the first time since we moved in, I locked my bedroom door. Stupid. I knew that. If Noah needed me, the door would slow me down, but the idea of something else wandering the flat while I slept made my skin crawl. It took a long time to drift off. When I finally did, it was into a thin, brittle kind of sleep where every noise jerks you back up to the surface. So when the whisper came, I was already almost awake. "You didn't tell him." The voice was in my room, not muffled through plastic this time, not distorted by distance, soft, close, somewhere between the bed and the wardrobe. I opened my eyes. The room was dark, lit only by the faint orange wash of streetlight bleeding through the curtains. My door was still shut. I couldn't see anyone, but the air felt occupied. "You told him you never talked to me," the voice said again, almost curious. That wasn't true. My mouth was dry. "Oliver," I whispered. There was a brief, strange silence, as if something in the dark was pleased. "You remember then," it said. The mattress dipped slightly near my legs, as if a small weight had settled there. I didn't look down. I couldn't. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're stress, or a leftover dream, or—" I stayed. The voice cut in gently. "You asked someone to stay, so I did." The room felt smaller suddenly. The years between that old, exhausted version of me and now folded in on themselves. "I didn't ask you to talk to my son," I managed. The mattress creaked softly. The feeling of weight shifted, like someone had tilted their head. "You left him alone tonight," the voice said. "You were tired. You didn't come when he dreamed." I did. Something cold and heavy settled in my chest. "I'm here now," I whispered. "You're here now," it agreed. "Until you're not." The dip in the mattress eased, like someone had stood up. "He's afraid of being alone," the voice added. "You were too. You taught me that. That's why I stay." I stared at the ceiling. "I don't want you here," I said. Silence. Then, almost amused. "You brought me here," it said. "You moved in. You opened the door. You put him in the room where you used to talk to the dark and asked it not to leave you." The wardrobe door, which I was sure I'd shut, creaked open an inch. Cold air spilled out. The voice moved with it. "You're the one who forgot," it murmured from the dark. "He hasn't. Not yet." The room went still. I lay there, rigid, listening to my own heartbeat until the sky outside the curtains finally started to pale. I didn't sleep again. By morning, it all felt distant and thin, like a bad film you half-watched while doing something else. The wardrobe sat innocent and shut. The baby monitor was still in the drawer. Noah, when he shuffled into the kitchen in his pajamas, looked like nothing in the world had changed. "Morning," I said, overly bright. He climbed into his chair and yawned. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Oliver stayed," he said. "He said he was going to try really hard to keep you company so you wouldn't have to listen through the little box." I gripped the edge of the counter hard enough that my fingers hurt. "Is that what he told you?" I said. Noah shrugged. "He says he doesn't like when you're scared alone," he added. "He says that's when you talk the loudest." I didn't know how to answer that. I went to the letting agency that afternoon. The woman at the desk recognized me from when I signed the tenancy. "Everything all right?" she asked, in that cautious way that makes you feel like saying yes, even if the answer is no. "How long was this place empty before we moved in?" I asked. She clicked through a few screens. "Not long," she said. "The previous tenant left. Let's see, only 2 months before you arrived." "Previous tenant," I repeated. "Singular?" She hesitated. "Well, technically it was 2, she admitted. A woman and a child. She was the official tenant, but there was a boy. About your son's age, actually." Something twisted in my stomach. "Why did they leave?" I asked. "She didn't say much," the woman replied. "Just that the flat wasn't good for him. She broke the contract early and didn't argue about losing the deposit. Wanted out quickly." "Did she mention anything strange?" I pushed. "Noises? Break-ins? Anything like that?" More hesitation. A flicker of discomfort. "There was an email," she said slowly. "She said he'd started talking to someone who knew things he shouldn't know. She asked if anyone else had ever complained about feeling watched. That's all?" My voice sounded faint. The woman nodded. I managed a tight smile, thanked her, and walked home with my hands stuffed deep in my pockets and my thoughts buzzing like wasps. A woman and a boy, my son's age, leaving fast, talking to someone who knew too much. I didn't realize I'd stopped outside our building until Noah's voice floated down from the open living room window. He was laughing, talking, listening, responding to someone I couldn't hear. That night, I didn't plug the baby monitor back in. I didn't even take it out of the drawer. Instead, I stood in Noah's doorway for a long time after tucking him in. He lay on his side, dinosaur tucked under his chin, eyes half open like he was fighting sleep. "Are you okay if I leave the door open?" I asked. He nodded, but his gaze drifted past me, to the space just over my left shoulder. "He says you don't like the door all the way shut," Noah murmured. "He says you never did." I swallowed. "Oliver says a lot of things," I said. "You know he's not real, right?" The words felt wrong as they left my mouth, heavy, cruel. Noah's expression changed. His little face closed up in that way children's faces shouldn't. "You talk to him like he is," he said. "You say his name when you think I can't hear you. That's how you know it." I didn't remember doing that, but then there were a lot of nights I didn't fully remember. I smoothed his hair, kissed his forehead, and stepped back. The hallway light hummed softly. In my room, I closed the door halfway. Not all the way. Not tonight. I couldn't bear the thought of any solid barrier between me and Noah, no matter how much I wanted one between me and whatever else was here. I didn't get into bed. I sat against the headboard, knees up, staring at the wardrobe, waiting. It didn't take long. The latch clicked. The door opened with a soft scrape. A darker piece of darkness within the dark. "You asked about the ones before you," the voice said. I hadn't. Not out loud. "Yes," I whispered anyway. "She took him away," it continued. "The other boy. She thought if she changed walls I couldn't follow." "Could you?" I asked. Silence stretched. "No," it said at last. "But he called for me in other rooms, in other beds, in places that didn't know me. I heard him anyway." My skin tightened. "You're tied to this flat," I said. "To these walls." Another small silence. "I'm tied to whoever needs me," it said. "You brought me here before he did. You just forgot." The floorboard by the bed creaked. The air felt thicker. "I waited a long time in this place," it added. "Empty walls, old wallpaper, quiet pipes. I thought maybe you'd gone for good." "I did," I said. "I moved on. I grew up. I stopped talking to empty rooms." "But you didn't," it corrected softly. "You talked to him." I knew who it meant without asking. Noah. "You whispered about how you were tired," the voice went on. "How you couldn't do both. How you didn't want him to be alone even when you needed to shut your eyes. You asked for someone to stay with him when you couldn't." A memory surfaced. Half asleep on the sofa, an old cartoon flickering on the TV. Noah's tiny voice calling from his room over and over. Me whispering 1 minute, meaning it, then feeling my body shut down anyway. Waking an hour later to find him asleep with tears dried on his cheeks. I had whispered that night, "Someone, please, just sit with him. I can't keep my eyes open, just for a bit. Please." I hadn't thought anyone was listening. "I never asked you to talk to him," I said, but the fight had gone out of it. "You didn't need to," it replied. "He talks to me on his own." The mattress dipped beside my hip. This time I forced myself to look. There was nothing there. No shape, no shadow darker than the rest. Just a fold in the duvet, pressed down as if by an unseen hand. "He's less afraid when I'm here," the voice said. "That's all you wanted. For him to not be scared when you couldn't be everything at once." I closed my eyes. "You're making him dependent on you," I whispered. "What happens when we move? When we leave this place?" "You might move," it said. "He might. Walls change, roads change, beds change." The pressure on the mattress lightened, then returned near my feet. "But something always stays," it went on. "The part of you that asks for someone to listen. The part of him that believes someone is." I thought of the boy before, of his mother leaving fast, of her warning about something that knew too much. "Did she ask you to stay too?" I murmured. "She begged," the voice said simply. "And then she blamed me when he didn't want to sleep without me, when he cried in houses where I wasn't. She left so quickly she forgot to take all of herself with her." The wardrobe door eased shut with a soft thud. The room felt no emptier. "You're hurting him," I said, "even if you don't mean to." "So are you," it replied. "When you lie, when you tell him I'm not here, He looks at you and knows you're wrong. That's when he talks to me the most." The words landed heavy, because I knew they were true. Noah did look at me like that sometimes, like he was measuring my words against something else he trusted more. "You could leave," I said, "if you really wanted to help. You could let him learn to sleep with ordinary shadows." A long pause. For a moment, I thought maybe it had gone. Then, "You could too," it said. "You could learn to sleep without whispering into the dark and hoping it hears you. But you won't. You never do. None of you do. You just grow up and call it something else." The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Of all the nights I'd wished for some constant presence. Of all the times I'd asked, silently and not, for something that wouldn't leave. Of all the ways those wishes had clung to walls like damp. "You're not supposed to exist," I whispered. "Neither is a voice in an empty room," it replied. "But you made one anyway." In the morning, sunlight came in weak and gray. The flat looked normal again. Kettle, bowls, cereal dust on the counter. Noah slid into his usual chair. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked. He nodded. I hesitated. "Did Oliver talk to you last night?" He toyed with the edge of his sleeve. "A bit," he said, "but he said he was busy in your room. He said you remembered him." I felt something sink inside me. "What do you think of Oliver?" I asked quietly. "Really?" Noah thought about it. "He makes it less quiet," he said, "when you're working or tired, or when you say 1 minute and it's lots of minutes." A small, sharp ache bloomed under my ribs. "I'm sorry," I said before I could stop myself. Noah blinked. "For what?" "For the minutes," I murmured. "For all of it." He watched me for a long time, as if waiting for something else. When nothing came, he looked down at his cereal. "He says you don't have to be sorry," he said. "He says that's why he's here, so you don't have to be everything." I didn't reply, because I knew if I opened my mouth, something messy and helpless would come out instead. I don't know yet what I'm going to do. I could move, pack our things, find somewhere with different walls and different shadows. Maybe that's what I should do. But I know now that moving won't change the fact that I once stood in a dark room and asked the silence not to leave me. That I asked it again, without meaning to, for my son. You can't unfurl a wish like that. You can't pull it back out of the air. You can only admit you made it. Tonight, I will still turn off most of the lights. I will still stand in Noah's doorway and listen to him whisper to someone I can't see. I will still lie awake and feel the bed dip very slightly, as if someone small and patient has sat down to keep me company. He will talk to it, and it will talk back. And somewhere between the two of them, my name will pass like a soft, familiar thing. There is only one person in this flat who is afraid of that voice now. It isn't my son, it's me. Because I finally understand that my son's imaginary friend isn't just his. He's the echo of every night I ever begged the dark not to leave.